Hello, football fans, and welcome to episode 8 of View from the Sideline podcast. Coming up this week, we look back at the action from the Premier League, where it's all the eights for Liverpool as they secure their 8th successive win to go 8 points clear at the top after a win against Leicester, and Wolves caused an upset at the Etihad. Pete tests our knowledge with another teaser. We round up all the EFL action from the weekend, and as part of our ongoing FA Cup feature, Chris gives us the lowdown on Southport ahead of their match next weekend against Altrincham. So much to get through this week, so no time to waste. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of View from the Sideline podcast. It's Rich here, and as always, Chris is with us. How you doing, Chris?
Hey Rich, all right?
Yeah, good mate. You? Good week?
Yeah, not too bad. Good week of football for me. Not so much for you.
Yeah, I was debating about whether coming on this week.
I thought I was on a solo mission this week. So
yeah, well, we are guestless this week, so maybe we should have got Liam on because he'll be a happy boy after his team's result. So lots to get through this week. So as always, we will start with Pete's teaser. So we'll see what he's got for us this week.
In Premier League history, which player has the most goal assists?
Okay, tricky one. I think there's
stand out, but
there's an automatic reaction, I think, to go for players that have played in the Premier League the longest or the most appearances.
Yeah,
but
probably not. Probably not. But
I'm not sure I'm going to put Gareth Barry in there, although he's way up there with appearances. I'm not sure what his assist record's like. But we'll have a think about that, and we'll come back and try and answer it at the end of the episode. So I think we're 5-2 up. With Pete and his teasers, so we got the upper hand. So we'll see if we can make it 6-2. But we will jump straight into the Premier League review from the action over the past weekend. And I think St James's Park is a good place to start. Newcastle, Man United. What a response from Newcastle from last week.
Oh yeah, definitely. Obviously, they did get hammered last week, but I think all will be forgiven from their fans for a result like this. The one thing I would say though is that I think it is hard to believe that in this game that everyone probably expected Newcastle to get something from the game, from how poor Man United have been recently, which is obviously something that doesn't really often happen when you're talking about Manchester United. But
I think it was a difficult game to call because even in the past, when you've had amazing championship winning Man United sides, but whenever they've gone to St James's Park, it's always been a good close game where I don't think it would be hugely surprising if Newcastle had won. And I kind of think that this match was the same. The form United are in versus Newcastle having to give a response from how they played last week. I don't think the score was that much of a surprise. I wouldn't have said United were clear favourites at all. It was a close game to call before it.
But for me, they are United are nose diving very rapidly down the table, and you speak to their fans at the moment. The fans are not. It's odd because you take them. When Man United normally lose, you take the mickey out of them, and the fans react. But now they don't react because they're just they're in that place at the moment where they're not expecting their team to win, which it just seems crazy from obviously growing up in the 90s, how dominant United were. It's really strange, but
it's an interesting match with regards to the managers, because just to stay on United, I don't know what you think, Chris, but it's Solskjaer. He's almost on borrowed time with a lot of fans. But
he's treading on thin ice. But I would.
What's the alternative though?
Yeah, this is it. I personally, I don't think that they would sack him. They're not known for being. I think they'll give him more time, but I think
there's rumours today that Allegri saying that.
Yeah.
Well, the reports today, some reports are saying that he'll accept it, but he wants to be offered it like literally within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Which
I don't think they will. I honestly think they'll wait. I think they'll give him January's transfer window, and I think they'll take it from there. But it's going to be a huge transfer window.
Do you think they'll throw money at him? Do you think they'll give him money to spend?
I think they'll give him not as much as what they need to turn it into a half decent squad. I think he'll have enough money to probably
that would cost a fortune.
Well,
that would cost
you're
a
looking
lot
like
of money.
600 million just to sort that team out. But I think they will say to him, we've got enough for you to have one big marquee signing, but it's who do you get? Depending on their league position, it's hard. It's going to be hard for them to attract.
It's not just league position. If you think, if you believe what was written in the summer, especially with Dybala, that he didn't want to go to United. I don't know whether that was what he saw their plan was, or the fact they weren't in the Champions League. But Europa League football and their league position isn't going to be hugely appealing to a lot of top quality players, and they're the sort of players that they need. And to be honest, they're the sort of players that United would have attracted sort of maybe 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's not so much the club now that's as attractive for a player. And I feel that their defence is pretty solid with the signings that they made in the summer. So where they need to improve is the midfield and up front, and that's where transfer fees are just ridiculous for those sort of attacking players that they're going to need. I mean, 80 million on Maguire, even if they were to get proper world class attacking talent, that's going to cost an awful lot of money. And something that I don't think they would back Solskjaer to that extent to sort of put that sort of outlay in.
But taking nothing away from Newcastle, they did play really well.
They absolutely deserved it, 100%.
Yeah, and like you said, they deserved the 3 points there.
It could have been more, and I think just lastly before we move on. It's interesting with Steve Bruce because he is getting a bit of a rough ride from the Newcastle fans. But I do wonder that if Rafa Benitez was still in charge, people would be singing his praises as a tactical genius and everything that comes with that from beating United. I think it's just a bit of a shame that Steve Bruce doesn't get the same sort of credit, because it was almost like a Rafa performance when he was at Newcastle. So they haven't been in great form, but I think he deserves a bit of credit, Steve Bruce, for that win. But yeah, thoroughly deserved. So we move on. So we go to the Etihad. Man City 0, Wolves 2. Not sure many people saw this coming, but I hope you haven't got this stat, Chris, but I'm going to throw it in. So I think it was the first time, I think I've got the number right, first time in 44 games since Man City have last scored at home. 44 games. If you think of how many home games in a season, that's like over 2 seasons.
Yeah. I was so shocked because this game was on the same time as the Chelsea game was on. So obviously I was watching the Chelsea game, and I hadn't heard anything all game, about this game. And then, to my surprise, they came through and said that Wolves had scored, and I was completely shocked. But then when I actually went back and watched the game, the highlights of the game, full credit to Wolves because they've struggled. Obviously, last week they got a win, and now they built on that by beating Man City at home, which is unheard of, I think, in most cases. But for me, it seems that the Laporte injury, I think, is actually it's causing more problems for Man City than what I thought it would do. I think they they struggled in all aspects of the game. Actually, to be fair,
they did look sloppy. That's probably the first time in a long time that I've seen them look as sloppy as they were, and they were creating their own problems from their own mistakes. Really, I mean, Wolves could have been 2 or 3 up in probably the first 25 minutes, half an hour, just through mistakes from City players where they were either caught in possession or they were giving the ball away in sort of their defensive third. It was a strange game. I mean, I think I checked the score at about 65, 70 minutes in, and I thought my phone had lost like its connection, and I just thought that the app I was using to check the score hadn't updated, like my 4G or something was turned off, because I couldn't quite believe it was 0-0 after sort of 70 minutes. It was a strange one, but Wolves, I think, because of the way that Wolves have played so far this season and the form they've been in, I think that almost makes it more of a shock. But we can't forget that Wolves are actually a really good side.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Take into account they played Thursday night in Turkey as well, and they got a win there.
Let's say it was a good win as well.
You can't sort of take anything away from the performance. I mean, City were a bit. They didn't seem themselves, and they didn't seem to have the rub of the green that maybe they may normally have, where a high percentage of their attacks and a high percentage of their play with sort of pressing and pushing the opposition back just didn't seem to pay off as much as it would have done in the past. So, and then they got hit twice on the counter attack, and I mean, Traore, he looks like he should be in Japan at the Rugby World Cup. He's a beast. It looks like he's sort of just his shirt's going to rip or something. He's a specimen, but like you say, he's rapid as well, and I think they deserved it. I mean, it absolutely blows the title race wide open.
Certainly
especially with Liverpool winning on the Saturday. I mean, the pressure was well and truly on City, but how they react will be a good indicator, I think. And I guess I think Liverpool have got United next, haven't they? And I think City are away at Palace, if I'm right. So maybe City might be hoping that United can do them a favour, but. A great win for Wolves, thoroughly deserved, and it looks like their season might be back on track, which can't be said for Spurs.
Derailing, isn't it? It's all...
Yeah, well, I mean, crikey. I think one of the reasons for writing the blog that's now on the website was so I didn't have to talk about the Spurs game. Because I thought if I can get everything off my chest and write it down in a blog format to put on our website for everyone to look at, then I don't have to talk about it. But I've got a few points.
It all started last week after we finished the podcast. I was nicely editing away the podcast, watching the game. 4-4-2, 5-2. Oh, it's not going to get any worse than 6-2, 7-2. I was like thinking, oh, dearie me. But
that was the point. I was actually putting a post together to put on social media to ask for a new co-host for you because I was not coming back.
But you think from that, you can't hide away from it. But from a defeat like that, you'd think that they'd want to come out on Saturday and show the fans how they can turn this round. But straight from kickoff, it was just poor. I know, obviously, Lloris is hard to say because obviously he was at fault for the first goal, but obviously he's injured as well. So and now he's out until next year for you. But I just never thought you got into the game. I thought you never looked threatening, really.
The thing. When we were talking about Newcastle, the thing as sort of almost a bare minimum I expected from Spurs was was a reaction after that game against Bayern. And no, it didn't start off great with Lloris, and I mean he makes a bit of a howler, and then obviously in the fours, as I'm sure everybody's seen, that he's dislocated his elbow. But to me, we can't hide behind that. I know Pochettino said some things post-match around that it affected the players emotionally and that sort of thing. From my perspective, and I love Lloris, and I'm gutted that he's out for as long as he is, but he's not going to score goals for us. So we can't use that as an excuse as to why we lost. The reason Spurs lost that game, there was no drive, no desire, no fight from any player. And as I've written in the blog, I'm very much on the side. I'm plugging the blog hugely.
Yeah.
I'm very much on the side of Pochettino, and I'm in a place where I think that it's the players that if they don't want to play for the club, then they need to leave. The one bit where I probably would question Pochettino about the game, why Sissoko's playing at right back, I'm not sure.
It's interesting, isn't it?
we had Foyth back on the bench after his injury, and Davinson Sanchez was on the bench. And I know he played right back against Arsenal, and didn't have a great game. For me personally, because Eric Dyer was back in, I would be putting Sissoko in where Dyer was, and then I'd be having Foyt or Sanchez at right back, because I think both of them are better right backs than Sissoko. And to be honest with you, Dyer's, I like him as a player. I mean, he's one of the ones that's rumoured to be off, but Sissoko gives us that drive in there that Dyer doesn't. He's more of a sitting midfielder, which is not what we wanted against Brighton. So, I mean, there are a few things from Poch's point of view that I wasn't hugely happy with. I mean, there's rumours this week that there's 5 players he wants to ship in January. I think it's Ericsson, Aurier, Rose. I know Eric Dyer, and there's one more. But the thing for me is, and especially with Serge Aurier at right back, we don't have anybody else. Walker-Peters isn't, in my opinion, ready for the Premier League. And you can't ship 5 squad players out in January, and you're not going to get proper good enough replacements in that's going to make a difference. I think I would accept this to be almost a transitional season for Spurs, where we're running down these players to get them out of the club, and then we rebuild. And I think Poch is the man to rebuild it. But I think this is an absolute game. I don't want to dwell on the Spurs bit. I think Brighton thoroughly deserved that, and Spurs were bad because Brighton were also good. And I know, I think we both picked Brighton to struggle, but they have shown that they can go out and they can take points off the big teams.
It was their first win, wasn't it, since the very first game of the season? So
yeah, but when they played Chelsea last week, they held their own until they made an error. Until they made that defensive mistake for the penalty, they were in the game, and even at 1-0 they should have equalised. But so I think we need to give a lot of credit to Brighton here, and they absolutely deserved it. Spurs deserved nothing from that game, and I'd probably finish it by saying that. So they've got Watford next after the international break. That is now a huge game. Because after that, we go away to Liverpool. If we don't pick anything up in the Watford game, that we need a win and a performance in that game. Otherwise, I think that there's going to be changes. Let's move on. I will put my soapbox away. It's difficult. It's difficult when the club you support is in such disarray. I mean, we've let in 10 goals into. Anyway, I'm not talking about it anymore. We're going to move on. We're going to go to Anfield, Chris. Liverpool, Leicester. Sneaky win for Liverpool. What do you think?
Well, I don't think there was any. Well, I think a few people have actually questioned whether it was a penalty or not, but I thought it was a penalty in my eyes.
I didn't think it was. I thought it was really soft.
It was soft.
Really soft.
I would say it's soft, but it's hard. It was soft, but kind of that sort of tackle inside the box. If even if you slightly catch the player, I think it's likely to cost you. But saying that, I thought Liverpool should have probably wrapped the game up in the first half with the amount of chances and good chances there in the first half. They probably should have wrapped it up then. But fair play to Leicester getting back into the game as well. But for the second week running, Liverpool have pretty much grinded 3 points, out of a game. Obviously Sheffield United week before, and obviously Leicester this week.
It's what you need though to win the league.
Oh yeah,
if
definitely.
they're gonna win it,
and it shows now. He's 8 points clear already. It's crazy.
It's a big gap. It's a big gap when you think that they can now actually afford to lose home and away to City, and they'll still have a 2-point lead if they carry on. I thought Leicester played well. I thought that it showed that they mean business this year. I think that they haven't necessarily played lots of big teams so far this season, but and their league position is justified. I thought they were quite unlucky. Just on the penalty, I mean, what I found strange is that, and the one that sprung to mind straight away, and it was in a different situation. It was Ashley Barnes against Norwich for Burnley, and they were already 2-0 up, and in my view it was a blatant penalty, but it didn't even go to VAR.
I thought it was penalty,
but he got taken down pretty obviously in that game. And where I struggle a little bit with this one is I don't understand why that went to VAR. And I think it is a soft penalty.
It's soft.
Hand on heart. Last year, take VAR out of the equation, I think probably 60-70% of the time that's not given, because I think it is that soft that he's looking for he's almost like what Harry Kane does. Mane's looking for the contact. He's waiting for that contact and then going down. But last year, that surprises me if it's given. But I don't know. Is it? You're at Liverpool, 1-1, last minutes of the game.
Yeah.
Almost like what used to happen to United.
Maybe he just does it. Maybe he just does it to get VAR to look at. I don't know. It's a tough one. But for me, do you think Leicester will be that worried that they lost that game on Saturday?
Yes, but because of the way it was. Lost it.
Yeah. If they had lost
if they'd lost 3-0 or 3-1 and the Liverpool had scored the third goal in like the 70th minute, I think they go there. They've given a good account of themselves. The losing it in that way, to me, that's the sort of penalty that, if it goes for your side, you're sort of like, like a sigh of relief. If that goes against you,
don't get me wrong. If that was against Chelsea, I'd probably be starting.
You'd be fuming.
You'd
be fuming. Yeah. I wouldn't care if that was against Spurs, because we'd already be 4-0 down. So 5-0 wouldn't make a difference. But I think it's soft, and I'm not taking anything away from Liverpool.
No,
because they've been unbelievable so far this season, and I'm now tipping them for the title. I've gone the other way. I've come away from City.
I think it's hard to look at anyone else at the moment than Liverpool, especially in the last 2 games. Like I said, where they've grinded a result out. I think that's what makes you champions. It's results like that will inevitably.
Whatever way you spin it is soft, in my opinion. But Liverpool, so United and Spurs next. If they get 2 wins there, so not only would they have beaten Chelsea's Premier League record for the best start to a season.
No,
but no, I'm not saying that because you're a Chelsea fan. but it will be a new record. And 10 from 10, I think if they get through those next two games, which should be tricky games away at United and home to Spurs,
Not
but
sure
two
the home
teams hugely
Spurs ones, but yeah.
underperforming, well, then I think they'll be looking good. But so your chance to shine, Chris. Saints, Chelsea, good win. Very good win.
Great performance. I thought it was a really good performance on the Sunday. I was, going into the game, I was actually feeling quite confident, actually, which is not something I've been able to say for a while. For Chelsea, I thought we had a really good win in the Champions League last week, and they kind of carried on from there. Probably slightly a bit lucky with the first goal of Abraham. He's literally just kicked it as high as the stadium, and just lucky enough that it's literally looped right into the goal.
I could see the ball from my house.
Obviously, Yoshida tried his best to get it off the line, but it was. I don't know if you can call it a great finish or just a bit. I think it was more luck than anything. But then straight from kickoff, we get the ball back again, and it's 2-0. Mount scored, and I'm loving the fact that Abraham and Mount are scoring lots of goals this season, because I'll call you out on this one, but you were one of these people at the start of the season that was wondering where the goals were going to come from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Tammy Abraham, if he's not joint, he's just behind Aguero on goals scored. So,
but that was going to be one of my questions to you, Chris, about the young guns at Chelsea, and I'll hold my hands up. I didn't think it would work, but put into the mix Hudson-Odoi, because I really like him as a player. Now that he's come back, when you put him, Mount, and Abraham together, that's a pretty decent front three that's going to do a lot of damage, and have got so many years ahead of them.
Yeah,
that I think it's a real plus point for Chelsea.
Yeah, definitely. It's only 2-3 seasons ago that all three of them were playing, in the youth leagues together. These players have been playing together for a good 6-7 years at youth level. So, and there was always going to come a time when they won. At youth level, they won the equivalent of the Champions League. They won other European Cups. They won the league 4 or 5 years in a row. They won the FA Cup 3 years in a row. The thing that's helped is probably the transfer ban. I'm not going to lie. I'd say that because that's been in place, we have had to use these players. But I think they're really, really shining in the league at the moment, and I think every Chelsea fan will say that they're really, really proud of the performances that are being.
But you've got to look at them. So Abraham was he was at Villa last year, wasn't he? And obviously they got promoted, and Mason Mount was with Derby, and they got to the playoffs. So, I mean, there's two players that have been pretty successful in the Championship.
Yeah, as was Tomori.
Should have helped.
Tomori was at Derby as well, and I think we've also got Reece James coming back as well. He's just coming back into it now as well.
Stop talking about how good your player. It's now annoying. It's now annoying.
But
on a serious note, 8 games in, 5th in the table. I mean, I wouldn't have put Chelsea there, but I begrudgingly say well done. Just quickly on Saints. I mean. Chelsea were very good. I do think Saints were pretty poor.
Yeah.
They've only scored more than one goal in a game once this season, which is when they beat Brighton 2-0. And they're averaging nearly two goals against a game, so they're scoring under 1 or around 1 and conceding nearly 2. So I mean, I think that says it all for them.
I know
really.
Obviously Kante scored just before half time to make it 3-1, but I found it very strange that in the second half they didn't really come at Chelsea too much. Chelsea, we've been known to be a bit vulnerable at the back this season, but they didn't really create that many chances.
No, I think Danny Ings seems to score one type of goal. which is either like a keeper error or sort of a 5-yard deflected tap in.
Well,
Nothing
yeah,
against him, but I mean
yeah.
that seems to be what happens. And I think Saints are very light in midfield, which I think is probably where their problem is. But I mean they're only outside of the relegation zone on goal difference, so it's not been a great start. But I can't stand to hear you say about how good Chelsea are anymore. So we're going to move on.
We'll come back in a couple of weeks and discuss some more.
Yeah, so still got a few more games to go through. So we'll start with Norwich Villa. So 5-1.
Wow.
I think, especially from what we were talking to Liam about last week, I think Grealish played amazingly. I think where we were
in midfield, I thought he played really, really well.
Yeah, where we were talking about whether he's possibly a luxury player or not, I think he answered. Well, he certainly answered a lot of our questions.
He heard again. He's one of those players that secretly listens to this podcast.
Yeah, everybody does. And I think what Villa have got for them this season is Wesley up front. I mean, I always kind of think that if you're going to survive in the Premier League, you do need someone that's going to score goals, and he's got 4 so far this season, which isn't a bad return from 8 games.
Yeah, he had a great game on.
He did. Yeah. And with Grealish, I think they'll be all right. I mean, the win moves Villa up out of the relegation zone.
You have to say they latched onto a very vulnerable Norwich defence.
Yeah, but I was going to say on Norwich. So they've lost 5 of the last 6, but I mean the 6th was the win against City.
It's a curse. You beat City, you don't win again for the rest of the season.
Well, maybe they won't.
They were poor. No, they were really, really poor.
I know they got injured. I mean, they had their 3rd choice keeper in, and the thing, Norwich started the season off really well. They were playing really good football, but if it wasn't for how bad Watford have been, that they'd be bottom. I think Norwich, but I mean they've got to move forward. I mean they've got to try and get through this period. I think with the injuries, etc., where they're picking up points where they can. So at least when everybody's back fighting fit, they've got a fighting chance. But a great win for Villa. I'm sure Villa will be fine this season because we need Liam on again, really.
Yeah, Liam. Yeah.
We can't get one if they go down. So we'll go to the Emirates. Arsenal, Bournemouth. What a strange game.
Can I just say something before you start this? If you think of the firepower that Arsenal have up front and how well Bournemouth have attacked this season. 4 shots on target between the pair of them.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. But I tell you what, this is weird. So my first note on this game is, and I mean no disrespect to Bournemouth when I say this, but with the firepower that Arsenal have got, they shouldn't be winning 1-0 with a goal in the 8th minute from their centre half.
What a centre half, though.
Well, what a centre. Yeah, going forward, he's brilliant. Defensively, he's atrocious. But to me, and I'm not putting Bournemouth down when I say that, because I was surprised by Bournemouth's in the first half. I don't really think they gave anything in an attacking sense. They were in it a lot more in the second half. But I don't know how that game finished 1-0 or stayed 1-0 from a goal so early on.
What's your thoughts on Arsenal signing Pepe after his season he had in Liga 1 last season? You know, he was scoring I think he averaged pretty much a goal and a half every other game, and he just does not look like he's.
I think he came with good numbers.
Yeah,
I think he came with really good numbers, but there is an awful lot of players that will be signed off the back of a good World Cup or a good Euros or one good season. And I know it will take time for him to adjust, but the biggest way I can judge that, and there's been a lot in the press about in this week, is Wilf Zaha, where if you said to me, would you rather have one or the other for roughly the same sort of money, I would have gone Zaha all day long.
Yeah,
I would have even. I think what they pay for Pepe 70, 71, 72 million.
75. I think it was.
If they'd have got Zaha for 80, I would have said that would be a much better signing.
I just felt like he hasn't. I don't know. Maybe he just needs more time. But when I see him play, I just don't really see.
But
A
I think it
huge
speaks
amount.
volumes when who was it? Villa, when they had a penalty and they gave him the penalty, and it almost felt like they were only giving it to him so he could score to build his
boost him.
confidence
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
But yeah, like you say, 4 shots on goal. I mean, Arsenal were quietly going about their business. They're third in the table, only a point
Oh,
behind
yeah.
City, so they're doing something right. But jury's still out. I mean, they kept a clean sheet, so we can't really say the jury's out on their defence. But yeah, I found that game a little bit strange, if I'm honest. But we'll move on. So West Ham Palace. This was a good game. So Palace 2-1. Was it a surprise to you? If you look before the game, there was only a point between them. Was it a surprise that Palace won?
You never know West Ham, do you? You just cannot tell which West Ham you're gonna get turn up on the day. But credit to Palace. I thought they were actually the better team, to be fair. And a late goal from AU, and they won the game. But I don't know what it is with West Ham. Sometimes one week I look at them and you think, well, they could actually beat any team in the league, and then the next week you're just like, oh, could they beat?
But there were 6 unbeaten going into this one.
Yeah, that's what
I
mean.
And I thought they went Haller. I mean, he looks a decent signing for them up front. He's going to score them a lot of goals. It was a bit of a silly penalty to give away, I think. It is one of those again where if VAR's not there, you could see why it wouldn't be given. But I think the way the handball law is this season and with VAR, I think that's always going to be given. And then the second goal, this is where VAR works really well for me because he's originally flagged offside, isn't he? And then the goal's disallowed.
Yeah.
But then once it's reviewed, I mean, what's he onside by? I don't know, a couple of inches, but he's still onside. What do you think about Cahill at Palace?
I think it was a good move for him.
Really well.
Yeah, it was a good move for him. I said even when he left Chelsea, I said he'd still do a job for quite a few teams in the Premier League. But I thought the games he has played this season, I think he's made a good account for himself. But yeah, no, he's done well. But like you said, the Haller for West Ham, he will score them quite a few goals this season. He's quite a good target man to have.
He's almost like a fit Andy Carroll, isn't he?
When
I say fit, I mean healthy, not like good looking. Well, yeah, they're both handsome men.
But no, I thought it was a good win for Palace, but West Ham were a bit meh.
It was weird to have a West Ham Crystal Palace like top 6 game, but they're both in the top 6. Yeah, it's a bit weird. Anyway, speaking of top 6, we'll go to Burnley Everton. My first question to you on this one is: do you think Seamus Coleman should have been sent off for his first challenge on its own? Obviously, I mean, he was sent off for 2 bookings, but first one.
It was. Yeah. Yes.
Chris, get off the fence. Yes or no?
Yes, I thought he should have been sent off for the first tackle.
I did as well. I thought it was an offence that probably should have got him sent off on its own rather than a yellow. But,
okay. Why is he going into attack when he's already on? I've said this time week in, week out. I'm saying this. He was very lucky just to get a yellow for the first one. Either take him off Or just because he was fired up. After that, he looked
Do you
fired
not
up.
think the second one was a bit soft though?
It was a lot softer than what the first one was.
Well, yeah, that's true.
And you got to think maybe the referee is thinking, oh well, the first one was a pretty bad tackle, and I probably let him off slightly with that one. So normally they do get a bit more lenient referees, aren't they? They're like, you've had two, could have had 2 yellows already, but I thought, I think maybe in the back of the referee's mind, maybe he's thinking he should have sent him off for the first one. So, but
they're leaving it up. But I mean, what about the game? I mean, Everton.
I thought they were the better. Well, I thought they were actually the better team. But
I mean, you get
lose.
You get a corner or free kick against them, you're pretty much guaranteed to score. I mean, they're letting so many goals in from set pieces. But I mean, we're talking about Solskjaer and Pochettino earlier about managers that are under pressure.
He's probably the most under pressure manager in the league, I'd say right
Absolutely.
now.
I think he's the one. He's Marcus Silva is, in my opinion, the manager that's under the most pressure, especially with there's a stat on Everton where they've spent something like 500 million.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? For a team outside that so-called top 6 bracket, that's a huge investment. And you don't really see it. To me, they haven't really. In fact, they're actually worse than what they were last season.
Well, I mean, they started off all right.
Oh yeah.
But then they seem to have. I mean, if you remember the back end, I mean, we spoke about it quite a lot. The back end of last season into this season, I think there was like 6 or 7 clean sheets in a row.
Probably one of the most informed teams there was. But it's hard to say what's happened. But
they're in the relegation zone, and they cannot buy a win at the moment. And
I honestly think
he'll be the first to go.
He's probably got one, I'd say, because he's already treading on pretty thin ice already. I'd say he's got one game left. I'd say if they lose their next game, I'm not sure who it was against. I think they're playing one of the teams around them, I think. But
at the bottom, it's got to be Watford then, isn't it?
I think they are playing the team around them, but I'd say his next game he's going to have to win. Otherwise, I think it's all over for him.
I think the difference with the pressure on him is the money he's spent.
Oh yeah, because
the money the club have spent.
Yeah, because I think they've promised a lot. In the summer they bought in some big like that Moise Keane. To get him. That was a good signing because he was a well sought after striker. He was, scoring goals, for the biggest club in Italy. So, they showed a good game in the transfer window, but unfortunately, that's not transpiring onto the pitch.
No. Speaking of which, Watford, Sheffield United.
I told you, Sheffield United do not lose away games. I'm telling you, I've told you this week in, every other week.
If Watford are going to win anything this season, it's going to be miss of the season from Andre Gray. I mean, that was a beauty.
I think we might be seeing that one again this season.
Yeah, well, and I mean, Welbeck. With Danny Welbeck, it was good to see him back out playing football. But I mean, he had a one-on-one, which I think he probably should have scored. And if you look at the difference in the performance for the Sheffield United keeper Henderson with the one he let sort of through his legs last week against Liverpool, he made some unbelievable saves, which basically got Sheffield United that point. I think
they're so hard sometimes, so hard to break down, aren't they? They're quite a gritty sort of team, like in midfield. They don't really take any prisoners, but I've been very surprised. I think out of everything this season so far, I think that's other than probably Liverpool being 8 points clear, I'd say their like sort of story is probably surprise of the season for me so far.
It was a strange game where the result. I was trying to sort of have a think about who the point works out best for, because Watford have had such a bad start that a point's a point for them at the moment.
I'd still say.
But I have lent towards it being a good away point for Sheffield United.
Definitely, yeah. Because
so I think that's probably where it sits.
They're in their minds, at the start of the season, their objective was probably just to stay up.
Yeah.
And the fact, where they are now, because you never know, second half of the season, it might all fall apart for them. You never know. You never know. And
every
they are
point's
a
good point away in the Premier League, especially.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so that wraps it up for the Premier League review this week. Lots to talk about. Good to get a lot of that off my chest. I feel a lot better now. So
you've got England. You've got England now for a week, so you're off the hook now for a bit.
Yeah, but it's weird trying to follow a team that wins. It's a bit weird. Maybe I'll follow San Marino over the weekend or something. Okay, so that will do it for part 1. So we'll be back in part 2 where we'll kick off with the EFL review. So we'll see you shortly. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of View from the Sideline podcast. So we're going to kick off the second half by going into the EFL review. So we'll start with the updates from the Championship over the weekend, where West Brom have returned to the top of the table after getting the better of Cardiff in a 6-goal thriller at the Hawthorns. West Brom were 3-0 up with 20 minutes to go, only for Cardiff to pull it back to 3-2. Before a last-minute goal sealed the win for the Baggies, so they go back to the top of the table, still with only the single defeat this season, which was a defeat to Leeds last week. Forest are in second, but they are level on points with West Brom after a 1-0 home win to Brentford. That was their 4th win in the last 5, so Nottingham Forest in a good run of form. Preston, they moved up to 3rd after thrashing Barnsley 5-1. Swansea and Leeds have dropped to 4th and 5th respectively after both suffering defeats at the weekend. Swansea went down to a shock 2-1 home win to Stoke, so we'll be talking about Stoke in a minute. And Leeds lost 2-1 away at Millwall. Bristol City, they move into the final playoff position. They got a 1-0 home win against Reading. So at the bottom, as we said, Stoke, they got their first win of the season against high-flying Swansea. Really, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, Swansea were top of the table after they beat Leeds. But yeah, Stoke's first win of the season. That moved them on to 5 points, but it wasn't enough to lift them off the bottom, despite both Barnsley and Reading, who are the other 2 teams in the relegation zone, losing. They're both on 8 points. Huddersfield, they're now out of the relegation zone after their 2nd consecutive win. They beat Hull 3-0 at the
turning
weekend.
Things around, aren't they? Because obviously they've got new managers, haven't they, now? So.
Yeah, looks like it's,
worked.
So far, Stoke, it might be a flash in the pan. But yeah, Huddersfield look like they're on the right track. In League One, at the top, Ipswich have extended their lead to 4 points after their 4th consecutive win. They beat Fleetwood at the weekend. Wickham, they remain second despite dropping points in a 3-3 draw at home to Peterborough. In the playoff places, Fleetwood remained 3rd after that defeat. Blackpool move up to 4th after a 0-0 draw away at Bolton. I nearly said 0-0 again. Coventry, they're in 5th, and Sunderland are in 6th, but both lost at the weekend to Rotherham and Lincoln, respectively.
Just quickly, sorry to butt in. I see the Sunderland manager was sacked, wasn't he?
He was. I think Kevin Phillips is favourite.
He's favourite. But I read something to say that that the Sunderland manager, I think his name was Jack Ross. I think, but he, if you put all the EFL and the Premier League together, he has lost. Only Liverpool and Man City have lost more games than him since he's been in charge at Sunderland, which is crazy.
But Liverpool haven't lost.
Well, you know what I mean. Well, yeah, and obviously Man City don't lose many games, do they? But other than those 2 teams...
Oh, so he's got a good win record.
Yeah. Well, I think he's drawn quite a few games, but...
Must have drawn a hell of a lot. He's gone. Yes, I've read Kevin Phillips's favourite to take over. But at the bottom, so Bolton, they're now on -8 after another point at the weekend against Blackpool. That was a 0-0 draw. So 3 draws in their last 5 games now. No wins, but at least they are picking up points. But they are still 8 points behind Southend, who lost for the second weekend running, going down 3-1 away at Gillingham. Wimbledon make up the relegation places, but they're still 3 points from safety despite a win at the weekend, beating Rochdale 3-2. So on to you, Chris, in League 2.
Yep, so we've got new leaders in League 2. Forest Green moved top after a 3-1 win over Crawley, which means Exeter have moved down to second after a 1-1 draw with Crewe. Newport scored in the 96th minute to beat Carlisle to move up to third. After their draw with Exeter, Crewe are in fourth. Cheltenham are in fifth after a 1-1 draw with Oldham. Bradford have moved up to sixth after they beat Swindon by 2-1, and they actually leapfrog Swindon, as Swindon are actually down to seventh. No change at the bottom, unfortunately, for Stevenage. They lost 3-1 to Colchester at the weekend, and they have still yet to win this season, which is not good. So we'll move on to Yeovil. Well, a double header of Yeovil Watch. So they lost on Saturday by 2-1 to Hartlepool. So it was the first game that they've lost in a while. A strange end to the game as Yeovil actually equalised.
It's not about ball, boys, is it?
Not this way. So Yeovil actually equalised in the 92nd minute, only to concede pretty much straight from kickoff to lose the game. So, yeah.
That's when you're at your most vulnerable, as soon as you've scored.
Well, you'd think that they'd shut up shop in the 92nd minute, but no. And they also played last night. So they played Woking last night, and they actually beat Woking by 3-1.
Great win last night.
Which is a good result for them, as Woking are one of the teams in and around Yeovil. It was a shame that Bromley were losing at one point in their game as well, but they ended up winning. So Yeovil was still in third. Halifax actually drew, so they're actually only a couple points off top now. So yeah, they lost at the weekend, but a really good win.
But what's that? One defeat in about 7 or 8, isn't it?
Not one defeat in 9. It is.
Well, there you go. I mean, you can allow them one defeat.
Yeah, but they're actually not the most informed team in that league either. Barrow, I think, have won 6 in a row now. So yeah. So
they'll be going up, and we'll be following them. We'll be following them back into League 2. But yeah, they're doing good this year. It's good to follow them, isn't it? When they're winning. We're not glory. Yeah. We're not glory hunters.
It's always good to support a team when they're winning.
a lot. Well, rub it in. A lot of defeats last year with Yeovil when we were following them, and it's good to see them. Good to see them winning again. So that pretty much does it for the EFL review and our weekly Yeovil Watch. So we're going to go to our FA Cup feature now, where for those of you that don't know, so we picked a random team from the second qualifying round, which was Runcorn. So we followed their FA Cup journey until they're eliminated. Then we take on the next team, etc., etc. So obviously we had the interview with Luke from Farsley last week ahead of their game against Southport on Saturday. So Southport did run out 5-0 winners in the end, which I think was probably a bit of a harsh scoreline from a Farsley perspective, especially having home advantage as well. And from talking to Luke, it was I mean, he was saying that it was always going to be a close game, but so I think 5-0 was a pretty harsh scoreline, to be honest. But by the rules of our feature, we now pick up Southport, who have been drawn at home to Altrincham in the next round, so that takes place next Saturday. So Chris, you're gonna give us a bit of detail about Southport, introduce the listeners to them, and what we can look forward to following them into the next game?
Yep. So Southport Football Club play their home matches at Hague Avenue, but it's actually currently called the Pure Stadium, but that is for sponsorship reasons. So
as with a lot of football stadiums.
So I'm sure that makes them quite a few bits of money. Their nickname is the Sand Grounders, which is really hard to say. Founded in 1881 and currently playing in National League North. So going on to a bit of their history. So obviously so this is to do with the FA Cup. So their best performance in an FA Cup came in 1930, 1931, when they actually reached the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. Unfortunately, they lost.
That's some run.
They lost to Everton 9-1 at Goodison Park in the quarterfinal, so it didn't end too well.
I'd fancy Southport to beat Everton this year.
Yeah, but they also had another good run in the 65-66 season, where they reached the 5th round and they lost to Hull City 2-0. So they've also a few of their honours include they won the old Division 4. They've won in 72-73. And they won the Conference North in 2004-05 season and the 2009-10 season. And they've won the Northern Premier League in the 92-93 season. So they've always been sort of in and around. I suppose they were in the Football League for quite a while as well, but always in the sort of the lower bracket of the Football League. In 2006, the club actually changed to a full-time club, but 2 years later returned to part-time. Their current manager is Liam Watson, and this is actually his 3rd spell at the club, but you could say it was his 4th, as he was caretaker manager for a short period of time as well. So he's got a bit of experience at Southport, this guy, because he keeps coming back. So just a bit around some previous. Luther Blissett played for them. Rich, did you know that? He played former England international and AC Milan player.
I've seen Luther Blissett play for Watford.
Well, there you go. He played for Southport on a 5-game loan deal. So
wow, there you go.
And former England and Liverpool player Mark Wright managed the club in 2000-2001 season, but he's actually recently come back to the club and is currently head of development at the club. So we'll go on to some
England legend there, Mark Wright. England legend.
He's there right now, head of development.
This is impressive.
Most appearances is Steve Dickinson. He was a goalkeeper for Southport. Signed for them on the 1st of August 1999 and played his last game on the 31st of May 2011. So he was there for some time. He played. Well, he only played 284 games though in a 12-year stint. So I'm not sure if he was a reserve goalkeeper. Their leading goal scorer is David Gamble. He is the all-time goal scorer in record. He has 65. And the highest ever win came against Gateshead in 1988-89 season. They beat them 7-0 in the Northern Premier League.
That's a good solid win.
There you go.
That's a good solid win.
That is Southport Football Club in a nutshell. So exciting.
Thanks, Chris, for that. Yeah, so
they could be the first team that we followed on this feature that win a game.
Yeah, you shouldn't have said that. So you shouldn't have said that. So I guess to put some context on it. So Southport. So it's one win away now from the first round proper. So in the 4th qualifying round, the conference team, so Yeovil, Eastleigh, I think
Harry Gay, by the way, Yeovil were drawn against Sunday's team, actually just outside of Tottenham.
Leyton Orient, are they in the conference? Have they gone into this round? I think they might be. Anyway, but so the conference teams have gone in. So a win in this round will we'll see Southport
Potentially, yeah.
progress to the first round proper. So then we've got the League Two, and I think League One clubs go into it as well.
Yep.
So like we said, so they'll be playing Altrincham, and it's a home game. So it's a week Saturday. So as what we've done with the other clubs, so with Runcorn and with Farsley, we'll be doing some social media stuff in the build up to the game next weekend.
Getting involved.
Yep. And Southport have got Brackley at home this coming weekend in the league. So we've actually put that in our predictions challenge. So myself, Chris, and our guest this week will be trying to predict the score for Southport's match. So yeah, but I think as a start, that's a good intro. There's a lot of stuff there I didn't know about Southport. So thanks very much, Chris.
Sorry.
That was a comprehensive initiation or a comprehensive introduction to Southport, I should say. So yeah, just keep an eye out on our social media channels and obviously for upcoming podcasts where hopefully we'll be featuring more on Southport. So going into the predictions, so we've got a double header this week. So we've got 6 international matches from the Euro qualifiers, as well as 6 league games, which, as mentioned, Southport are in with the League One. So Chris, would you like to let the listeners know who our guests are this week?
So I've pitted my sister and her husband, my brother-in-law, against each other. So they are going to go head to head.
So hence all the pressure for family breakups and is on you.
Yeah.
This week. So it's not to do with me.
Haley is doing the international scores, and Aaron is doing the league games.
Cool. So thanks to both for taking part. I'm hoping they both beat you, Chris. I'm not going to lie. Not me so much, because I need cheering up. So we'll be getting the scores out on social media. This should be tomorrow, so that'll be Thursday. So that'll be in time for the matches. Just touch on last week, Chris, quickly, where it was my brother Chris who was our guest. Very, very briefly, because we all got absolutely terrible scores. And if Chelsea had scored, I think something like 90 seconds earlier, I wouldn't have even got the golden goal 5 points. It was that bad. So Chris got 9, I got 8, and my brother Chris got 3. So it wasn't very good. A very low round, so it doesn't really alter the table at all. But but hopefully more higher scores coming into this weekend. So I think it's time for you to blow our mind, Chris, with some stats in the wonders of white. So what have you got for us this week?
I've dusted off the old statistics books this week.
You brought out your little black book of stats.
I actually have a little brown book, but I don't put stats in them, but I might in future. Okay, since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was appointed permanent manager of Manchester United on the 28th of March, Manchester United have won just 17 points in 16 Premier League games, and that is the 4th worst for that period of the teams in the Premier League at current. So that just puts it to a bit of perspective of how bad it actually is.
Start. Good start.
Since the start of last season, Wolves have won more points against the Big Six teams than any other non-Big Six side. That's 20 points so far they've accumulated. Since 2016, Marcos Alonso has been directly involved in 26 goals in 100 games in the Premier League. That's 15 goals, 11 assists, which is the most by any defender in that period.
That's the Chelsea stat for this week. Every week there's a Chelsea stat.
Always positive stats as well for Chelsea. Okay.
Yeah, well,
and the last one is Steve Bruce has registered his first managerial win over Manchester United after 22 failed attempts.
I did hear that one.
Yeah, I just said it.
I didn't realise. I heard that one at the weekend, but I didn't realise he'd played against them that many times. But he has managed in the Premier League quite a lot, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, he's been at Royal Hull, Villa. Yeah, he's done a lot.
Birmingham, Wigan. Yeah, he's been. Yeah, he must have done a lot. Yes, fair play. For me, that was the result. Even taking Wolves beating Man City, for me, that was the result of the weekend.
Yeah.
And I think the Longstaff brothers is a great story. Good story, as well.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but did you also hear the story about the dad?
Their dad?
So he plays ice hockey. I'm not sure at what level. Apologies. I haven't looked at it, but I heard this at the weekend. He also won Player of the Month in his ice hockey league. So celebrations all round for them. So thanks, Chris. Great stats as normal. Pete's teaser. So we need to try and crack this one. So in Premier League history, which player has the most assists? So you did say you've got a couple of ideas, Chris. Do you want to throw them out there as a starting point? I'm sure he holds a record for like games or something, but excuse me for discounting him when it comes to assists.
So,
well, I'm thinking so like
Kevin
De Bruyne has got loads of assists. Did he play much for Chelsea in the Premier League? Or have I put you on the spot because you don't know?
No, not at all.
So we discount him.
Yeah.
So usual suspects. So Rooney must have got a hatful.
I'd say Rooney,
Gerrard, Lampard.
David Silva.
Yeah, but there's players that have played a lot more games.
I know Fabregas.
Fabregas is a good shout.
I remember Fabregas actually hitting 100 at least.
What about Ozil? Mesut Ozil's got to have a few.
He must be up there.
What about Scholes? He must have played a load of games.
He's played.
Beckham's
Giggs.
Giggs must have. Giggs must have.
He must have out of.
He must have more assists than Gareth Barry's got games. He must have a hat full of assists.
He's probably got the most games played in the Premier League that high up the pitch.
I'm thinking.
I'm going to say
Gerrard, Scholes, or Giggs.
I'd say
or Rooney.
Fabregas.
Or Fabregas.
I'd say Fabregas or.
Pretend you don't support Chelsea. Who are you going for? Let's narrow it down. Fabregas, Giggs, Scholes, and one other.
But Giggs was in the Premier League for like 15 seasons.
Yeah,
he was probably notching like 10, 11 assists a season.
So you think it's Giggs?
Oh yeah, just for longevity. We're
going for Giggs.
Well, I'm saying on the basis that he probably played 30, 35 games a season for United, and how rapid they were. He's probably going to be getting at least 10 assists.
Right, so let's narrow it down.
I'll say Giggs then, because you've twisted. Yeah, let's go Giggs.
I would have gone Giggs, Scholes, or Fabregas. Right. Okay, I'm on it.
Well, I've got the answer in front of me.
Right. Okay. Let's just confirm. Gareth Barry played 653 games in the Premier League. He's still playing now, isn't he? Is he still at West Brom? Giggs played 632.
I've got the answer in front of me. I can tell you Gareth Barry is 15th in the all-time assists in the Premier League. He's got
so he didn't win it then.
64.
So who's number one?
Ryan Giggs.
Get in.
162 assists.
Have you got top three?
Yeah,
three or four there?
Fabregas was second, 111. So he's actually got 51 more than anyone else.
Yeah.
Rooney was third. He's got 103. Lampard was fourth, 102.
Is Paul Scholes anywhere to be seen?
Scholes,
What's Gerrard?
Scholes is not in the top 20.
See,
Gerrard
that
was
surprises me.
A few surprises, maybe. Teddy Sheringham 10th. Darren
Oh,
Anderson.
Sheringham. Yeah, I didn't think of Sheringham.
Anderson's
Oh, well.
14th. And Stuart Downing is 20th. Ericsson's in there, mate. He's 19th. So, yeah. So, yeah,
Don't
Giggs
care.
by.
I only care about. I want Grealish at Spurs now. Grealish and/or Madison, please.
Both. Have both.
Yeah, we might as well.
Yeah, so he was a country mile ahead of Fabregas. So,
Okay,
Pete.
7-2 to us.
I thought it was 6-2.
6-2. I'm adding points to make us look better than we are. Pete's away anyway. He can't hear us. I expect he will. He'll download it. So I think that pretty much wraps it up for today's episode. I just think it's worth saying, Chris, from our point of view, that we've hit a bit of a milestone this week. Well, 2 milestones, really. So we've just passed 4,000 podcast views on YouTube. Yay us. Which I think, considering we've been going just over a year, is a decent total.
Crazy.
So a huge thank you to everyone who's listening, supporting. Please, if you like what you hear, subscribe. The higher amount of subscribers we can get, the better we feel about ourselves, basically. So it's all for us. And just on a side note, we also surpassed 100 followers on Instagram. So we're nearly there, Chris, beating your Twitter followers. So that's a good thing as well. So it's good to see that the audience for the podcast is growing. So anyone who's listening, who likes what they hear, please follow us on all our social media channels. And if you subscribe on YouTube or Spotify, Chris, I want to say Spotify for subscribers.
Spotify, iTunes, literally any place where you can download a podcast.
That would be that would be appreciated.
Search our name and you'll find
for a poor unhappy Spurs fan, please just follow us. That would cheer me up. I'm trying to pull on the heartstrings. That would cheer me up. We're not here next week because of the international break.
I've got to call up. I've been called up, so can't make it.
Chris has got to go and play for San Marino, running on with the water bottles at half time. So we won't be here next week, but we'll back the following week. So we'll have as much content as we can get on Southport. Fingers crossed that they get through against Ultram. So we'll be doing some stuff on that, and then obviously on the return of the Premier League. So thanks for listening. Chris, do you want to say anything?
No, well, just thanks to everyone. Again, like Rich said, for downloading the podcast, subscribing, listening to it, however you listen to it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Speak to you soon.
Yeah, see you in 2 weeks.